Number two, one of the standards that you should have, or one of the principles, is you should be sexually clean. You know, to the world, no sex before marriage is strange. Does he value you enough to wait? Like Jacob, listen, Rachel, you're worth 7 years of my life. I'm willing to wait because I value you. You're not a cheap date. You're not someone I can just, that's not you. Listen, I value you. And so I'm not going to, and so the lady, the girl that respects herself, the girl that sees herself in that way, and hopefully there's a father figure or a father somewhere that's laying that in on them heavy, like, hey, listen, you're worth something, you're beautiful, you're cute, you don't need, when they conduct themselves in a certain way, say, listen, you can't just come and touch this. Listen to what the Bible says in Deuteronomy 28-29. If a man finds a young woman who is a virgin, who is not betrothed, so she's not engaged, and he seizes her, it's quite interesting. That word literally means, in the original, I was looking it up, it means manipulates or takes. It doesn't mean like, this is not talking about rape. So they're both engaged in this. He seizes her and lies with her, and they are found out. So not just him, they are found out. Then the man who lay with her shall give to the young lady's, young woman's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife because he has humbled her. He shall not be permitted to divorce her all her days. There's three key elements to that I highlighted. The father is involved, value is involved, humility is involved, and there's talk about you can't divorce her. So let's talk about those real quickly. He says he humbles her. He says, you know, there's something really weird about men, that once they get the girl that they want to sleep with, they lose respect for her. They don't treat her the same. I was watching a YouTube video of this young woman who was saying, she's not a Christian, but she was saying she's tired of hooking up with men because they always treat her differently afterwards. So when they're pursuing, they're acting a certain way, but once they get what they want, they begin to treat her differently. She says, I'm not doing this anymore. Any man that gets anything cheap, he doesn't value that thing like he should. No, my brother bought me my first car. I really liked it, but it spewed white smoke to the point where people behind me couldn't see where they were going. And then one day, it just wasn't working. It would just switch off in the middle of the road. I was praying, God, you need to help me. That, you know, I spent a lot of money here. Then someone crashed in the back of the car. I got to pay out. So I bought another car. The car I bought was a Vauxhall Polo. A nice little car, 1 liter, and it was faster. And Effie and I really enjoyed it. And then a friend of mine got sent out to pioneer in Streatham. He was going to start a church in Streatham, but he didn't have a car. I'm thinking, how can a pastor not have a car? So Effie and I discussed it, and we just gave him the car. Do you know, within a year, he blew up the engine. Thinking, how can you blow up the engine of a Vauxhall Polo? So I asked him, and he told me that he was flooring it on the motorway. He was putting his foot down and pushing the engine to its limit on the motorway. And I got a revelation. You know, you wouldn't have done that if you bought that car. If that was your money that got that car, you wouldn't be treating it like that, because there's something about men, when we get something cheap, we don't value it. And so you have to hold yourself in a certain way. Listen, I'm not cheap. There was a young girl, she came from a very bad family. And what I mean by that, I mean dysfunctional, dads all over the place, moms all over the place. There's issues in that family, but she was gorgeous, drop dead beautiful, like the type of gorgeousness that when she's walking down the streets, people would stop her and say to her, you need to be a model. I mean, she was stunning. And then she starts to like this young boy in the church. And so she's probably about 17, 18 at this point. And they, you know, they want to start dating. But every time this young boy is around this girl and there's just the two of them alone, they cannot keep their hands off of each other. So they didn't fornicate, they didn't have sex, but they pretty much did everything else. And so at some point, this young boy, because he had a relationship with God, he says, I'm not doing this. And he went and spoke to his pastor, he said, Pastor, I want to date her, but she brings out the worst in me. Whenever I'm around her, I end up dropping my standards for my desires. My standards go way down here and desires go right at the top. And says, you know, I want to break it off with her. And okay, listen, bro, do what you need to do. So he broke it off with this girl, lived for God for a few months, and then he ended up dating another young lady in the church, and they got married. They're married to this day, but she is nowhere near as good looking as this girl. But she's a godly girl. loves God, man, loves Jesus. And so he was attracted to her, not because of Coca-Cola bottle shape, not because of none of that stuff. Some of you have no idea what just happened there, but if you're, okay, anyway, none of those things it was just her godly character. So this young girl, this gorgeous girl, she gets a little bit disgruntled. Why would you? And so she backslides and she leaves church. And she ends up in the arms of another young boy. I think his name is Michael. And he couldn't believe his luck. Remember, she's gorgeous. He's like, no way. And so he could not believe his luck. He was like, no way that someone like her would be interested in someone like me. I cannot believe my luck. I'm the luckiest man in the world. Within 1 year, church, this is a true story, he was beating that girl. Within 1 year. She ended up getting pregnant, and he tried to force her to abort the child. She refused, so he left. On one hand, he was very sincere. He was like, I can't believe I'm so lucky to have this girl. But because she sold herself cheap, men do not value what comes along cheap. He began to mistreat her. And now she's a single mother. She's still unsaved to this day, and she believes in tarot cards and all this kind of stuff, all because of this issue of relationship. Listen, standards protect. Standards save you from issues. In the Jewish religion, it was 30 shekels. It was 30 shekels to get married. But if this law says, listen, if you sleep with my daughter and you're not married, give me 50. Because I'm going to show you something. That girl is worth something. And you're going to marry her. And then there's this very weird request at the end. It says, he shall not be permitted to divorce. How are you going to enter into a marriage and then tell the man, oh, by the way, you're not allowed to divorce her? I want to tell you something. Something happens when a man humbles a woman. The way he treats her, the way he sees her, they have to say, listen, you can't divorce her. You don't say that to a couple, that to any other. To him, you say, listen, you're going to have to stick this thing through, because story after story. I was looking at statistics. I didn't want to bring them up on the screen because of time, but you can look them up in your own time. Couples that cohabitate, so they live together and then eventually get married, they have an extremely high divorce rate. Massively high divorce rate compared to couples who live separately and then get married. More than that, couples who don't live together separately but then fornicate prior to marriage and then get married, they have a high level of divorce as well. It's quite interesting. The lowest rates of divorces are in, and I'm not putting any stock on this, I'm just saying it's interesting, on pre-arranged marriages in the East. They have really high retentions of marriage, because you're going into it with the determination, I am going to have to make this work. Number two, most of those young ladies, when they get married, they're virgins. And so this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. But the top of the list, the highest percentage of marriages that make it is when people enter into that marriage as virgins. There's this whole lie. Well, how will I was anticipating this might come as a question. Pastor, how will I know what I like sexually if I don't before I get married? How will I know? Listen, the person that you spend the rest of your life with, teach them. And she'll teach you. Spend the rest of your life exploring. Hey, it's a good thing. And all of the other stuff is just absolute foolishness. Put it this way, the very thing that you want when you drop your standards is the very thing that you end up losing. A lot of sin that people end up doing, it's not bad. It's not bad things that they want. It's what the devil does. He corrupts good things. So think about this. Sex is good, but the devil wants us to pursue something natural, but in an unnatural way. That's all it is. Sex is good. It's part of the first thing that God did when He created man. It's like, hey guys, go at it. Do what you need to do. But you guys are in a union. The devil says it is a good thing, but I want you to do it outside of the parameters. Fire is great in a fireplace. It's terrible on your bed whilst you're sleeping. The context matters. So desire of sex is natural, it's good, it's healthy, it's a good thing to do. But the standard that you should have is, I value myself enough, or I value the person I'm in a relationship with enough to wait until marriage.